Well, hello, everyone. Annie Dickerson here. And on behalf of the entire Goodegg Investments team, I wanted to welcome you to another episode of the Life and Money Show, where we talk about everything from investing to financial freedom to mindset, parenting, travel, creating a life by design, and everything in between. And boy, do we have a great conversation for you today. We're going to talk all about courage and mindset and what it means to your life by design and your investing and your financial future. But first, I'm here with my amazing co-host, Susan Elliott. Susan, how are you today?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I am excellent. Now, Susan, you just had a major milestone birthday yesterday. And when this show airs, actually, you're going to be off the grid. You're going to be like in the mountains. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing to celebrate this milestone birthday.
Yes. I figured turning 40 was there's something super special about the decade birthdays. We can all agree there. But specifically for this one, I wanted to create a challenge for myself that would, like I said, challenge me physically. Right now, that's an ultra running. That's kind of my current flavor of challenge, physical challenge, and also was like in a beautiful place. It was kind of a gift to myself. So I originally was looking for just really cool races around this time period, but I found this trip, and it's through Aspire Adventure Running Company, a tour company, and it is essentially a 3-day or a 5-day total, but 3 days of running in the North Cascades. So right up near the Canadian border in Washington, outside of Bellingham, which is north of Seattle, in the mountains. And it'll be 3 days. This happens to be a climate summit week trip of theirs. I was originally going to do a bigger traverse of mountain ranges, but there's forest fires down there. So I'm going to do this one. And I quite like the lodge scenario. We'll get to take hot showers and eat really lots of hot food and run some big miles for 3 days straight. So my goal is to do the 20 to 22 mile distance every day. So that'll be 3 days of that. Yeah.
I wanted to ask before we move on, because, the topic of the conversation today is courage. So when you signed up for this, or when you've signed up, I know you've done a number of these ultra runs and challenges and things. Does it scare you? Because it terrifies me, as I'm not a runner. It terrifies me. I could not think of anything possibly more terrifying than to be out and 20 miles ahead of me. That is it's mind blowing. Does it scare you? Or at this point, are you pretty much like, okay, I know I can do this. It's just a little bit of a stretch.
It's a little bit scary. It's enough that it's exciting scary. I don't know if I'll be able to do the big distance on the third day, for instance. That's what scares me. Will I be able to wake up that day and do the 22 miles? And I think what makes it less scary is that, especially with this type of trip, is that I have the option to do less. And in fact, that's actually, it's not ideal for me. So I originally signed up for a trip that was, like I said, a point A to point B traverse. So we would have been running essentially 25 miles and then 32 miles the second day and then 25 miles. That's a bigger, longer distance. But you also can't opt for a shorter distance when you have to run to camp.
Oh, yes, that's right.
So you need to wake up that day and commit to doing the longer distance in that scenario. So I want to take that mindset and still tackle this new version of the trip with that same mindset. Because I did set a big goal for myself, and I want to try to reach it. So it doesn't scare me as much. And another thing that I draw upon, and we'll talk about this with courage, is just that I have little moments where I acknowledge my strength every day when I'm doing small things and running. So I went for a 10-mile run last weekend, and I remember at 9 miles, at 10 miles, thinking I'm almost done. And this run next weekend, I'll already have finished half of my running distance, and I feel like I could run another 5 or 10 miles right now. And so I can draw upon that experience of okay, I regularly run half this distance. For 2 days in a row. And if I can do that, then surely I can kind of take it a little bit further. So maybe it's daunting when you sign up because you're not, I wasn't necessarily trained up for it when I decided to do this back in January, but I've taken the whole year doing other long distance stuff. And this is certainly the three biggest days I will have ever done by far. So we'll see.
I think that, this is such an interesting point that, it's not like we go through our daily lives and we've got this bucket of courage and we're like, okay, where can I put this toward? It never happens like that. It's like when we're least expecting it, something happens. It's the call to courage, right? The hero's journey.
Yeah.
It's the call to courage that you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about this, but something in me is calling me. Did you have moments like that for the two stories that you share, one or both?
Yeah. I mean, it is the calling to me as I had a 1-year-old daughter, and I'm looking at my engineering trajectory, my, both like the earning trajectory, but also like the time it's going to take and hours per week, years. The fact that that's a career too, where I couldn't live out this full-time travel dream that I have, because we have to be located in an office. And there was so much good about it too, that I think a big part of that courage was like, I have a bigger vision. I have a different vision for my family and my life. And now that I'm here with my family, now that I have a child, I mean, I'm not one of these women that knew she was going to have children, but now that I have one and I, have a happy marriage, and we built our marriage on travel, go listen to our episode on dealing with finances as a couple, my backstory of my, how my husband and I met in China doing kayaking on the Yangtze River. But, I wanted to evolve there. And I was like kind of looking at this point where I was like, I am going to have to go against the norm here to change this. I am going to have to potentially not work in engineering, this thing that I've worked hard for. I just went back to grad school. I just got my degree. I'm on my way to becoming a professional engineer, the PE, to get the stamp. Like, there's so much momentum there and security. Like, to go against all of that is really scary. So there, I was called to it. It's, my daughter called me to it, my family, but just like recognizing who I am as a person, and I think that I had not acknowledged that. Like, wait a minute, I am the kind of explorer, creative people person, and an educator at heart. And those aren't actually being served in this life path that I've chosen, I think. And it wasn't a light bulb. It was like a dimmer switch.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.